Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Stay on Your Bike podcast. This week I've got a really cool guest on. Good friend of mine, amazing bike rider, and also a real positive and amazing personality in the sport, which often doesn't go hand in hand with great bike riders and great personalities. But anyway, I'd love to welcome onto the podcast. Thanks for coming on, Ed Masters.
Thanks, Paige. Round of applause.
Great to see you, mate, and great to see that lovely, nice view you've got in the background there.
Yeah, no, we're pretty lucky, you know, living in eternal summer. This is a bit of a daily kind of view for me. But yeah, no, we were just speaking before, just in Queenstown, but yeah, I've hurt my elbow, so I've got a bit of downtime, so can jump on these podcasts and catch up with mates.
Good stuff, mate. Yeah, you just showed me a picture of your elbow, and it was fairly wild.
Yeah.
Pretty big injury right before the season, so not ideal for you.
Shit, no. No, it's super frustrating. I was saying to someone the other day, I feel like I might have pissed off a higher power or something because, yeah, I've just had a bit of a bad run the last couple of years, back-to-back injuries and whatnot. So, but I won't let it beat me down. Yeah,
Good on you. Good on
just
you.
yeah. I still love racing, and I think when you have a crash, and the first thing that you think about is when's the next race, then you're still a racer.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, going back about 300 years, I remember I kind of had like obviously we're always getting injured and little injuries and stuff like that. But I remember having I had one big injury, and for a while there, I didn't think I'd ever be riding my bike again. And then obviously, you come back and you ride your bike, but I I did lose a lot of confidence after a certain injury I had. And then I sort of started to get my confidence back a little bit. Never to the same point as I did have, but then I had another two quite bad injuries back to back, um, and I just started to think, is this is this worth doing anymore? That the racing side of things. Um, but I wanted to ask you about this because back when I was racing, at the end of my sort of racing stage, where I was in my early 30s, and I remember Warner used to say to me, "Oh man, when you get into your 30s, you're done. There's not, you can't go fast again anymore." And that I used to think about that. But obviously, with time's gone on with mountain biking, people are still super fast, well into the 30s, and as Greg Minnaar's proved, into the early
Yeah.
40s. Does it ever cross your mind after you get another injury, like what am I doing, or is it still all like, no, I just want to get back and get back to racing?
To be honest, I think it crosses a lot of other people's minds, but not mine.
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because everyone's like, oh, like, people raise those conversations, but like I was saying, like I'm still keen, and I was saying I was actually riding with Walker yesterday, just up one of the roads, trying to stay fit, and I was saying that like I just like racing
hmm
sometimes more than riding
yeah,
because you can go to that 10% that you're not comfortable going into on just a ride
yeah,
because it's like your brain doesn't let you go that fast,
hmm
take those risks. But
yeah,
when you're against the stopwatch, you will, and your brain will like open up that extra 10% of performance or skills that you can't tap into unless it's in a race situation. And I just love that.
yeah,
Um, so that being said, uh, yeah, like I'm in my mid 30s and stuff, but I still feel like A, competitive and B, sharp.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and
and yes.
now like mid-30s isn't old for an athlete, is it? It seems to be like the age seems to be going further on,
Yeah,
seems to
and
me.
I think I started I'll just I think my headphones have hold up.
All right.
Oh no, we're all good. Um I started international racing when I was like 22, going on 23, so a bit of a late bloomer in the sense of like these phenomenal young riders who are signed on to teams and are like grinding out on the World Cup. Like, because I grew up with Blinky, he was away racing at 15,
Yeah.
and I didn't join him until 7 years later. So, um, I think you're still enjoying it. It's not so much of a grind. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
having that late start. Whereas I think if I started at 15, I wouldn't have even made it to 22
Yeah.
for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm not as deep into it as some other guys are.
Yeah.
Um, but I
So,
think at the end of the day, it's like you I just love the racing. It's mint. And I was in downhill and in enduro and stuff, you never get to ride the tracks in that kind of condition
yeah.
anywhere else unless it's at a world level race.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like you don't get to like ruts don't form like they do at a World Cup unless it's a World Cup where you've got 200 guys going flat out. Um, so it's a real when the time comes that you can no longer race those tracks, I'd like to say that I made the most out of every opportunity and was like, hey, just even if you're not there winning, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool just to be able to ride those tracks.
Oh, 100%. I think like, people think, oh, yeah, it's quite easy to step out earlier, for many reasons. I remember thinking after I'd had a few injuries, like World Cup results had gone backwards. I was progressing and progressing and progressing, and then I took a dive, after injuries and time off, and then I was frustrated that I wasn't able to be straight back, where I was before I got injured. And I think I kind of gave up a little bit early, and probably if I could go back, which you can't, but and I don't really regret it.
Yeah.
I think like if I was to say to anyone, if you're still enjoying it, just keep at it as long as you can, because like you said, when you don't do that anymore and when you can't do that anymore, it's not as good.
Yeah. And like I see some people when they retire and
Yeah,
they kind of stop riding bikes, but like I'll never stop riding bikes. So I would never probably call it retirement.
yeah,
It's just the goalpost move.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So like, and they might move into a different form of racing or different style of event, but the competitive nature will like always be there
yeah.
for
Great.
me, I think. For the reason that you never like, yeah, my brain's not comfortable taking risks at high speed unless it's on a race. And then when it is a race, I'm like, sweet as death grip, all good.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and do you think, because obviously, with social media and Instagram and everyone's, posting these days, some people look insanely fast on the social medias when they're training and, when they're, you know, just out riding. Like what you mentioned, I don't think I've ever been able to ride as fast as unless I was racing. I didn't take those risks that I did when I was racing. That if I'm just out riding or training, do you think some people are the opposite, and then they kind of get nervous or something with racing, and then they're not able to ride that loosely?
Well, I think what you said just there is the difference between a good rider and a great racer
Mhm.
is being able to, it's, some people can. win practice, and then other people will win the race. But like the race is the one that gets you all the credit, the clout, everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
You know, people will notice when people win practice.
Hmm.
They'll
Yeah.
take notice and they'll say, "Oh, if only he could do that in the final."
Yeah.
Um, and I guess the person who wins practice but can't do it in the final and never quite figures that out, um, just, has that mental block and they can't perform when the pressure is on.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas you might have a guy who's maybe not as skilled, but their mental game is so on point that you know, when they're on the biggest stage,
Yeah.
they are ready to perform.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was like, they've had like a New Zealand mountain bike academy for the younger riders down here, and so yesterday I went in and did a bit of a Q&A and just sat in for like a mental skills
Yeah.
session, which was actually pretty interesting for me because, like we were saying, if I could do it all again, it's maybe something that I would pursue earlier in my career, or at least just have conversations with some mental skills gurus or professionals or whatever you'd call them, psychologists, just to see what skills you can give someone earlier in their career to like cope with that kind of pressure. Because it wasn't until, and it was funny, the guy at the skills thing was talking about it, but like, I said someone told me that pressure is a privilege. And so when you are in those moments and you're feeling the weight of the occasion and the pressure, you need to look at it as a good thing because you're everyone's actually envious of that position that you're in. So like lean into the pressure and accept it that, you know, being at the top of your game comes with this.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. It's not something that you run away from. It's something to lean into.
Yeah.
Um, but it took me a while to like train my brain to think like that. Whereas, when I was a junior, I would always just crash early. Like and I was stoked to crash because then the pressure was off.
Yeah.
So in that, that was me kind of running away from that pressure
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than like accepting it. But yeah, so I guess that's the difference between someone who wins practice and someone who wins the race. I
Yeah.
mean, you would have seen it with Sam. He had, he was a stone cold killer on race day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to talk to him now because, yeah, I remember it's funny. So I think it was 2016 and I qualified second at Fort William in downhill.
Yeah.
And that,
Is that when
I'd
you
only been,
were you on the Bergamont bike then, or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the Dorado?
And yeah. Um, and I'd ridden like a pretty cruisy run and got second, and I was like, sweet, we're on. Yeah, yeah. But I remember being at the top of the hill, me and Kurt, my mechanic, we're kind of a fish out of water because, my results had been steadily climbing, but like I hadn't qualified in the top 10. I'd been floating around the 20 to 30 and had a couple of top 20s at the stage. So I was like, this was quite a big step up. And
Yeah.
Fort William, it was this, the sun was shining. It was mint. It was like a day, 1 in 100 years race day in Fort William. Um, but everyone starts disappearing from the top of the hill, and the weight of the occasion starts really coming down. And I remember looking over at G Atherton, and he qualied fastest, and I think it was like Greg, a few of us, and everyone was kind of doing their own thing, and I'm just looking at G like, fucking hell, this guy's gonna kill someone. It was like,
That
yeah.
fired up.
Yeah, or no, just like the look on his face. And I was like, man, if me and him are going to battle together like that, he can have it. Like, yeah. It was like he was pissed off that I was up there, I was like, whoa, okay. And then now me and G are like good mates. It's funny as, but yeah, in that moment I was like, yeah, a
And
little bit out of my depth.
did that, like, do you think that affected your race run?
Yeah, I think it actually did. Well, I think my whole preparation affected my race run because my race run only lasted about 100 meters after that. But yeah, if I like overstimulated, ready to yeah, I was ready to win the race when you needed to finish the race to win the race.
And we had a very similar situation at Fort William. Maybe it was 15, 16, or 17, I'm not sure, but Mike Jones had qualified second or third, and Mike was on the rise, but we were like, right, Mike, that's brilliant, just do a similar thing in the final. And he was like, no, I'm gonna smoke everyone, I'm gonna go like way
Yeah,
faster. And we were like, oh no. And then 3 corners in, he just blew up. um
yeah.
and
I know the feeling all too well.
yeah. And
Yeah.
do you think, like, if you'd have, looking back now, if you'd have just sort of done similar thing to in your qualies, and got like a top 10 or a top 5, maybe, that would have, do you think that would have changed your results after that in the downhill?
Yeah, it probably would have, but I think, like, looking back, no regrets because from making a lot of fundamental errors, I learned a lot in one race weekend about next time you're in those positions, this is what you do. You're meant to be here, blah, blah, blah. Don't go and, you don't need to go up another 20%.
Yeah,
Just, in those moments when the like pressure is on, you rise to the occasion naturally. So like you don't actually need to put more effort in. I think your subconscious and everything takes over and you just will go faster because of the because of how it is, like it's race day, you're the last man on the hill, let's go.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
But it's all pretty interesting, like looking back. But then yeah, like I was saying to these kids, it's yeah, if you can pick up these skills early on and you can, because I'm still learning 15 years into my career, but you can pass on this knowledge and someone can bottle all of that up and learn it all in 5 years. And then that might mean that they can have, then they've got all the pieces of the puzzle to be a super well-rounded racer early on. And I think that's what we're seeing with these kids like Asa, Jackson, you know, it's pretty crazy how well-rounded all these guys are at such a young age.
yeah, definitely. And I think, going on some of the past races that have done really well as juniors, and then were able to step it up and be consistent in the elite ranks, like Loic, for instance. I'd heard about Loic um before he even came to a World Cup, when he was a French youth rider, and people were saying, oh, this kid's going to be amazing. And
Mm,
I think he got onto a really good team straight away, didn't he? With who he's still with today, basically. So he's had that base all along, hasn't he? And that sort of input from people that could guide him. And I guess the same, obviously before Loic, you had Sam, who was like super fast as an Aussie junior, and kind of was guided and coached by Scott Sharples in the early days, and then helped him in his early career. Um,
mm,
but like you say, now you've got these big. What I wanted to ask you about this at some point, so I may as well talk about it now. These the way the downhill's going at the moment, with or get seems to be going more elitist, but that's opening the doors for fast young kids, isn't it? Because the big teams want the fast juniors, don't they, straight away onto
mm.
their program. Um,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, like the 5 years ago, you were, if you were one of the top 10 teams, you were probably farming your talent, looking for your talent as graduate out of the pool of riders that are graduating out of junior.
Yeah.
Now, 5 years on, you're finding the talent that's going into junior. That's where you're looking for it. Because with the way everything's going and it becoming more elitist, salaries are getting up there. The barriers of entry for like a team to get themselves a top rider is pretty hard.
Yeah.
So you have to get that talent and talent under your like tent at a young age and then bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, we were if you want a top 10 rider, there's only 10 of them and you've got to pay for it and it's kind of hard. Like some seasons the whole top 10 will be under contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just go and you can't just go and get someone or like and then yeah, I mean kind of going on a tangent, but I think it's now how they've changed it to a three-man podium, that's kind of detrimental to the riders as well because now a podium rider has to be in the top three, whereas a podium rider, which comes if you have a podium rider who's can get podiums in their top five, um, now there'll be so many guys in the field who wouldn't be classified as podium
Yeah.
potential because their podiums that they've had in the past have been fourths and fifths.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, a bit of a tangent.
Yeah, but I understand. I think, it's I can see it from both sides now. When I was running a race team, obviously I always wanted it to be a five-man podium. But people outside of the sport of downhill, were I guess the Warner Brothers, who are, I guess, in charge of it at the moment, they're looking at it as well. Every other sport has a three-man podium, so why does this sport have a five-man podium? They keep, they're talking about trying to make a wider audience outside of us that love the sport.
Mm.
Um, which another topic I wanted to ask you about, because you're, a pretty well-rounded guy you do a great job with all your media as well as your racing and everything else. Um, do you think I find it really difficult, even if it's on a wider, a bigger audience with Warner Brothers on different channels and stuff. I still find it hard to believe that tons more people are going to watch downhill mountain bike racing if they're not into mountain biking, and riding themselves. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Uh, I get where you're going, and I agree with you that you can, you know, let's say they put Loic Bruni's race run on the big screen behind the headline act at Glastonbury.
Yeah,
There's, I don't know how many people go. Let's call it 100,000 people in that moment are watching Loic Bruni's run. Does that then, like, is there any hard evidence to say that 100,000 people are now engaged by downhill mountain biking? Like, I don't think so. It's like if you put downhill mountain biking on Eurosport and it plays in the pubs,
yeah,
like, if you're not a core fan, you'll watch it for a bit and then they'll probably ask someone to put the footy on.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
like my thing is, I think and this is all speculation. Obviously, like everyone's a backseat driver.
yeah,
But I reckon they just need to take mountain biking to where the biggest audiences of core bike fans are. And that's why like I feel they've missed the boat by not having a West Coast American round,
yeah,
not having a West Coast Canadian round, not having anything in Chile or
yeah,
South America because the demographics and all the stats say that there's such a core,
yeah,
huge audience. Like,
yeah,
but yeah, just going in Oceania, Australia and New Zealand, like when there are world level races, the people show up.
Yeah,
But I reckon you engage more non-core fans by having a big concentration of core fans, because then everyone goes, "Whoa, there's a lot of people there. That must be cool."
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Like, yeah, and having a paywall and stuff, you're actually cutting out the core audience
yeah.
because
That's my
I find it, yeah, I find it hard to watch World Cups, um, and it shouldn't be.
yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, this is the
yeah, what?
first year
Yeah.
in, since I've been watching it in, I started watching it in the sort of around 96, 97, and then I, got into racing and stuff. But this will be the first year that I've not got a platform that ready right now that I know I'm going to be able to watch the first race on.
Mm.
Which is, and you see all the comments like, "Oh, I'm not paying this to watch that." That's what you don't want, isn't it? You don't want the core fans that love the sport to not watch it anymore.
Yeah, and it's like the internet and the comments and stuff. It's it's so easy for the keyboard warriors to like create a
Yeah,
groundswell of negativity.
yeah,
Um, but the people leading that, it might only be 10 people who are like commenting regularly negative,
yeah.
but everyone reads it and starts thinking kind of negatively. So, um,
And I feel that,
yeah.
especially in mountain biking, it's crazy, but I I've kind of seen that happen twice. Within the sport, like people start talking bad on a discipline, and then that discipline goes away. Like first it was four cross, which replaced the dual. When you first started, back in the day, the top dual and four cross riders got paid nearly as much as the downhill guys. Um,
Mm.
and then, everyone was like, oh, four crosses, Well, first of all, a lot of the riders were kind of bagging on the sport because of, it was a BMX start gate. So, all, the BMX guys come in and the downhillers couldn't beat them out the start. And the tracks kind of favored somebody who could, be leading out of the first turn. So then that kind of got bad mouthed, and then the next minute the UCI dropped that, which to me, regardless of whether I like the way four cross was going, a multi-rider discipline that you can film the track, the whole thing is perfect for Warner Brothers. If
Mm.
to film, people like watching head-to-head racing. Um, then obviously, more recently, the enduro was on the up. It was really thriving. Everyone was buzzing on it. The industry was making new bikes and stuff going with it. And then all of a sudden, when it merged with the downhill and the cross country, obviously it's a lot harder to film and put on the live stream. And now it just seems to me that that's going downhill. Um,
Yeah, excuse the pun.
with the porn. But do you know what I mean?
Uh,
It's like once something starts getting bad mouthed, and it seems to just carry momentum and sort of get worse and worse really quickly.
yeah, and that's exactly it. It's like if I think back to last year's racing on the enduro, like the tracks were amazing. The level was as high as it's ever
Yeah.
been. Super competitive, close times, raw, fresh tracks. It was a pretty awesome season. You've got a couple of outliers like this. Yeah, we race in Leo Gang and stuff, and it's not quite ideal, but it's still good racing. But the narrative that comes out of it is like, oh, Enduro's dead. There's no one at the finish line. They're putting it on Thursday, stuff like that. But then when you're at the event, the the open race is selling out. Everyone's loving it. The tracks are good, but no one hears that. They only get the negative stuff, and then that just creates, like I was saying, the groundswell of negativity. Then you go on Pink Bike, it's like this person doesn't have a ride. This team's pulling out. This team's pulling out, and then everyone goes, "Oh shit, we should probably get out now." And next thing you know, uh, everything's kind of falling apart. The deck of cards is coming down, which is kind of what's been happening, but
It's like,
for no real reason. It's
I
just
know,
it's just
right?
it's literally bad press.
Yeah. It's like a little rumor at school, isn't it? And somebody gets bad
Yeah.
mouth and then everyone hates that kid and it seriously is seems like that. It's bonkers.
Yeah. So
And what, because when I first started getting involved with enduro, sort of back in 15, 16, it was more of a core participation sport at that time. You had your riders like Jerome Clements and people like that who were winning it early on. But as a as somebody a little bit more involved with the downhill and the cross country, that those disciplines had the sort of hero big name riders. And no disrespect to Jerome, who was doing amazing, but I imagine there was so many outside of the key, races, they wouldn't have known who Jerome was, whereas they would have known who, Sam Hill was, or Steve Peat, or Greg Minnaar, or whatever. But they might not have, heard of Jerome. And then as the sport progressed, it started to create its own superstar riders. Like Sam came in, and I think he did a good job to help promote the sport. Then Richie became a big name enduro rider, even though he was a downhiller before that. Yourself, and all these superstars of enduro, became, were born, and people, we knew that you'd all rode other disciplines and stuff, but for the key enduro fans, it was great to have these, superstars, like in the downhill and the cross country, that people could look up to and follow. And so, it's really sad that it's sort of going on a downward spiral now after it's got to that level, for me anyway.
yeah, it's actually it makes me kind of sad because
Mm.
um we got to race in some amazing places with some amazing riders,
Yeah,
and then now it's gone to a bit more of a cookie cutter rinse and repeat model,
yeah,
and yeah, it's lost its I don't know, it's lost its mojo a little bit. But
yeah,
I don't think it's hard to get it back. It's just some people need to let go and let other people like jump in.
yeah,
Because at the moment it's like there's not enough resources being spread across 3 or 4 disciplines, and
yeah,
there is a natural hierarchy. And at the moment, like enduro's at the bottom,
yeah,
I'd say cross country's at the top and downhill's in the middle.
yeah.
And that's just how it goes. But
Mhm.
when everyone was like all the disciplines were individually managed,
Yeah,
then the people who are managing them are putting all their effort into making that discipline as best as it could be, and that's why
yeah,
when Chris and stuff were only doing enduro, it was going really good, and like um, yeah, and I still think they have like their best interests at heart, but there's only 24 hours in a day, and one person can only do so much,
yeah,
and money. When you've got to broadcast downhill, short track, cross country, and enduro the same weekend, like
yeah.
things are going to slip through the cracks. So yeah, it's tricky. It's kind of sad. I was likening it to like a food pyramid.
Yeah,
Yeah. So enduro racing is just at the moment they've got like your meat and your 3 veg, the two bottom layers, but like the dessert, the top little circle, which is world level racing, is just missing. So the foundations are all there because like when you go to any weekend warrior, that's what they ride. They ride enduro. They ride enduro bikes,
Yeah.
supports the industry, everything. But that little triangle at the top, which is like world level racing, that bit's missing. So yeah, no one's getting the sweets.
So, from a a rider that's raced a long time, and you've won an Enduro World Series round, and you've done great at downhill as well. How do you think they can fix it and reverse this downward spiral, the downward spiral of enduro? How are they going to get it? How is the industry going to get behind it again and start having teams and top riders doing it again?
Uh, I think I've said this before, but what I'd do is I would just target events that are already happening, and so like there are some really big races that have big numbers and great events. Like let's say, for example, like the Squamish Enduro, late April, um, amazing tracks, big turnout. Like I would be approaching events like that and being like, hey, can we open up 150 spots, 100 men, 50 women, and we add a world
Right.
category,
Yeah.
and we call that round one. So you have your event that was already happening is essentially becomes the open race,
Yeah.
and we open up 150 spots and we give you some resources and we call that a world round. Then
Yeah.
we go to round two and we go to another race which might be happening Tweed Valley or something, go to the races with these big turnouts
Yeah.
and create like a dream
Yeah.
calendar based on events that are already happening.
Yeah.
So you're like piggybacking off something that's already going rather than having to set up something standalone.
Yeah.
Because then when 100 pros turn up to a big mountain enduro in America
Mhm.
that has 300 riders there, then those 300 riders are stoked because it's like elevating their event.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
all the
and then the
local
industry
guys
gets
are loving
yeah,
it.
and then
The
the
local
industry
guys are coming.
yeah, and then the industry gets behind it because you've got an event with 500 riders at it, plus all the spectators. Then you're getting a bit more of an expo vibe, and all you'll slowly start seeing the tents rolling back in because then the industry can see value because they're like directly reaching the like consumer of their products.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned this to somebody not long ago, but we have an event you've probably seen in the UK called Hard Rock.
Mm.
No, the tracks are probably not ideal for an Enduro World Cup, but the amount of people that go and race that and the amount of industries there with all the tents and all the people going and in the evening they've got live music and people go there for the whole weekend. Like you say, if they could have a a world round mixed in with that event, if the tracks were a bit more challenging there, then that would be totally the way to go. So I 100% agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, and also like people need to realize they need to stop thinking of it as, you know, it doesn't net and it can be anything. So it doesn't have to be like if let's say if it was at Hard Rock and you raced 12 stages that were 2 minutes long,
Yeah,
like that's fine.
yeah,
Like I'm all good with that. That gives it a 20 plus minute race time.
yeah,
You don't need to get away from the thinking that it has to be like a long form racing. It can be lots of short form,
yeah,
you know. Um, the enduro aspect is just getting yourself back to the top. It doesn't need to be an endurance downhill. It doesn't need to be 20 minutes long. Like you don't have to have that.
yeah,
That's all good. So yeah, that way when you get away from that train of thought, then it could you can take a race and adapt it to whatever the destination is rather than like trying to make the destination adapt to the discipline.
yeah, definitely. And you know
Mm,
what? I speak to a few enduro riders that are kind of like a bit, I guess they're a bit tired and burnt out on the way enduro has gone at the moment. With some of these people had team rides and they were getting paid to go and do this, and now they can't. So they're like, oh, we might just go and race. These trans races, the multi-day races. Now, you know, I've never done one of them, but to me, they are very something I'd love to be able to go and do. It seems great riding in these amazing destinations and doing all these huge long tracks, which as bike riders we all enjoy, but how you get the industry to to pay into that and to pay riders to do that is a different thing, isn't it? So if you want to get paid to ride your bike, like you said, you've got to, unfortunately, you've got to do it at venues where it's going to work for everyone, haven't you?
mm, yeah. Yeah, you've got to, everything's a transaction. So if you're giving me $50, you want to get $50 value.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one just gives you money to go and have a holiday. They've got to get something out of it. So, um, yeah, the trans races are awesome. Though I haven't done one, but I'm planning on doing a couple this year, just because it's something I'd like to do. But yeah, I think if you're a rider and you're trying to then you've got to go to those races and create some content and stuff. And in doing so, if you are doing that, then people are going to watch those whatever content you do, and then they'll be like, "Shit, that looks really fun."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't think those kind of races are at a level to support a
Mm.
full kind of professional, unless it became a series. But then, like you said, it's quite hard for the industry to get behind it because they don't really know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's very much so a participation event.
Yeah.
Um, but
Which
in
is,
that insane,
again, for anyone that's paying a lot of money to go and do those, if the top enduro world championship riders like yourself were at those events as well, that would be better for those non-pro riders to see you guys and be at the same event as you guys. But if you're not, your sponsors aren't paying you to go and do that, it's going to be hard to do, isn't it?
mm, yeah, that's why I was just keen to go to a couple this year and make some content and see what it's all about. Obviously with the thought of seeing what you can get out of something like that and how you can elevate the profile of those events. Because I think there is a lot that you could take out of something like that. Um, Kind of going back to the original EWS model where you take mountain bike racing to really cool places and ride raw, amazing tracks.
Mhm.
Because if you think what Enduro did for I think the EWS basically created Finale as a
Yeah,
riding destination.
yeah,
And then the same could be said for Madeira, um, Derby, or Tasmania and stuff. So yeah, taking events to those places can be super valuable.
yeah. Because
Even the Golfies, yeah, like with the AWS went there for years, and look like the Golfie pumps.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's amazing, and like for the bigger, wider audience who are mountain bikers that watch the events and the sports that that we do, you know, all the the races that the EWS were putting on in all these big ski resorts and here and all the different places. Most people that are into mountain biking can go there and ride those tracks, whereas you know there's only a tiny percentage of people that can watch Hardline and watch even a downhill World Cup can go and ride those tracks. Do you know what I mean? So it's super interesting, I think, as I get older. and I take less risks riding. Still love riding my bike as much as you do. But that stuff interests me because I think, oh, that looks amazing. I could go and ride that. And surely there's so much value in that, showing that stuff to sell to the people that are actually paying for the industry.
Yeah, massively. And that's why um, when they had the EWS 100, which
Yeah,
would go the day before or during the day of, like that was meant because then Joe Bloggs can show up, race all the same stages, compare his time to the pros on that day
yeah,
and on the same trails and be like, okay, Sam Hill beat me by a minute on a 3 minute track. Shit, he's real good.
yeah, yeah. But they still
And
got to
and
ride the track.
yeah, and on the same in the same conditions, albeit a couple of hours before, but um yeah, it's pretty cool
Yeah,
to blur the lines between the pro class and the participation class so
yeah,
that everyone so yeah, and it also creates that natural pathway because then that person can be like, okay, like I'm at here, I'm at this level, and
yeah.
in a year's time I want to be at this level, but it's easy to get there.
hmm Yeah, for sure.
Like yeah, you can kind of see how it works.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you know, last thing on the racing and how you sort all that out, because I want to talk to you about some more fun stuff as well. Um, where do you see the World Cup downhill going? Well, first of all, you've raced both disciplines. What have you enjoyed the most, would you say?
Um, I can't quite put one on top of the other,
Okay.
um, because I think enduro's mint in terms of the style and the way the racing works. Like you get to ride your bike in some amazing places, and the tracks are always super raw. So it's like it's not as built, but then you can't quite top a downhill race run because that's pure like racing.
Yeah,
You've done 11 or 12 runs down the track,
you're going.
you can X-ray the track and tell every single rock. Um, and when you do deliver a like top to bottom run that you execute like almost perfectly, it's like it doesn't get you can't top that feeling because that's pure racing. You're going flat out. Whereas you don't get that in enduro because you've only done one run down the track, so it's a little bit messy. It's like it's not as clinical and
Yeah,
perfectly executed as you would with a downhill run.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, the racing side for downhill, but the all-round bike riding is with enduro.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree with that. And where do you think downhill is going to go over the next few years? Do you think it's going to go? Do you think the downhill World Cup is going to sort of the tracks are going to get keep getting more built, or do you think it'll go back to more natural tracks, or do you think it'll be a mix, or do you think it would be good if it went closer to like what the hardline tracks are going to be for the TV? Maybe not quite at hardline level, but with bigger features for the TV and stuff like that. Because obviously, you could watch a race run a super technical steep track, and to a mountain bike rider you're thinking, holy shit, that's unreal what they're doing. But to a person watching it on the TV, it might not look that you know challenging, even because you can't see every rock and route and how steep it is.
Mm.
What do you think's the way it should go for downhilling?
Yeah, it's a bit of um it's a tricky one because the riders will always say they want more technicality, but then the TV wants bigger features, higher speed, closer race times. I think the riders are at a level now that regardless of what kind of track you put them on,
Yeah.
whether it's technical or jumps, booms, machine built kind of terrain. Um, the race times will always be super tight. So like it doesn't matter if it's Val di Sol or Leogang, when the conditions are the same, or if it's a dry race, um, the top five are all going to be within 1 or 2 seconds,
Yeah.
regardless. Uh, but yeah, I think hardline hardline's kind of making a bit of a stir because within, yeah, especially in the last couple of years, it's become the kind of pinnacle in terms of viewership racing. I think, Hardline's doing bigger numbers than Rampage. Um, and, I've heard rumors that it'll go to a 3 round series next year.
Yeah.
Um, so now you've got Hardline coming into the mix, and you're going to have riders who are like, well, my focus is on Hardline because that's giving me giving my sponsors and my personal brand the biggest value.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that in turn will create a shift in World Cup racing to kind of follow that
Mm.
kind of style of track because the powers that be will be like, well, we need to put in some bigger road gaps, make it a bit more hardline
Yeah.
type stuff because it's been so successful. But I have a feeling that like if they do go that way, then it's kind of too late because hardline or yeah, Red Bull were probably rubbing their hands together, being like, we lost World Cup downhill, but we created our own thing again,
Yeah.
which is now getting bigger.
Yeah. Do you think that,
Um,
do you think if that, if it's three races next year and maybe it becomes four and five races, do you think that that is the finally the way where, because people have tried to do series that would, rival the UCI World Cup downhill in the past, and it's never quite happened. Do you think that could then pull away some riders that really thrive on those tracks and are big salary riders for our sport? Do you think that could pull them away from the downhill World Cup?
you know what would be really interesting is just to stir the pot if Red Bull put a hardline event on the same weekend as a World Cup and just see what happens.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I would be super interested to see where the Jacksons, Bernard, Ronan, Asa, um, where their allegiance lies.
yeah, yeah,
Because, you know, and what do you reckon? Like, does winning? I'd like to. It'd be an interesting question to ask, like Ronan or Jackson. Like, what hits harder, winning hardline or winning your first World Cup?
yeah. I mean, obviously in the past, I would have always said that winning a World Cup would be the one that you'd want, but
Hmm.
now, like I think especially with social media and the way those tracks are, um, and the the quality of rider that's doing. Obviously, everybody who's done any Red Bull hardline has been an amazing rider, but when you've got the credibility of Jackson Goldstone there and Ronan, who are both World Cup winners and the Red Bull hardline winners, I think that gives it a lot more credibility. So that even though Amri and Bruni and people like that aren't there, it still gives the credibility that if you win Red Bull Hardline, it's pretty amazing. So I think it's a tough one. I mean, I think it'd be
Yeah.
amazing to win a downhill World Cup because you've got all the fastest guys in the world there. But if you win Red Bull Hardline on a track that's way more impressive to get down, I think it's a pretty tough call to choose.
Yeah, when I see them, I'm actually going to ask because it would be interesting to see what
Should
they
they?
reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it's I watch them, and it's I think especially the one in Tasmania. I'm only watching it from the TV, and it's easy to watch from the TV. When features are huge on the TV, you know how gnarly they are. But
Hmm.
uh, to me, as a bike rider, um, I wouldn't do any of them, by the way, especially nowadays. But if I, if it was on the line and I had to do one of those tracks, I would probably think I would have a better go at the Medina one. The Welsh one is so gnarly. The terrain there, it's not just the features; it's the bits in between as well, and
Yeah.
um, but I think if Loic, Amory, Loris, and all those guys went and did Red Bull Hardline, they're all capable of doing the track. So I think it would be amazing to see all the top dudes doing it at some point. But I understand why they don't at the moment because they're still contracted to win the World Cup and stuff.
Yeah, and Hardline's track record for eliminating riders is pretty high. So, like, imagine if it did go to a five-man series,
Yeah,
you might start with 10 riders, 20 riders, and there'd only be five standing at the end.
for sure. I mean, I think. The progression of riding is going so fast, isn't it? And I think when you've got tracks like Medina, and I'm no course builder, and I'm no flipping, I've no clue, but just looking from the outside, they're pushing that hard on those tracks. I just think there needs to be a little bit more protection, on certain around the track on certain features because they're going so fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I mean, you look at like Ronan's crash into that rock.
Yeah,
I'm surprised the rock wasn't hurt.
I know. But
Yeah.
if that that rock wasn't a feature on the track, was it really? So if that
Nah,
that rock could have been moved out of the way or a massive pad been put on it and
yeah.
in sections where you're landing off a massive jump in the trees and you might be swapping out, all the trees could have protection on them. Do you know what I mean? I know it's a much bigger setup, but maybe that's the way it needs to go.
Yeah, it's definitely just the speed and the size and stuff of all the features means that when things do go wrong, they go pretty
Yeah.
catastrophically wrong. Um, as we've seen with, even I think on TV, Medina looks a lot more sculpted and perfect than Wales, but in person, it's pretty gnarly. Like none of the stuff really gives it does it justice. And then Wales, like you said, Wales is sketchy because it's Wales. It's never going to be dry. And with it all being slate rock,
Yeah.
um, yeah, the when you slip, you slip about half a meter because all the rocks are big flat plates.
Yeah.
So the bike's just it's like it's got a pivot in the middle. Yeah, and then you got
It's
to hit all these
yeah.
massive features.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that was so impressive how good Jackson rode there on his first attempt. That was incredible.
Yeah,
It's really, really impressive that. Anyway, other than the current racing, tell us a little bit about obviously you're there in Queenstown. Queenstown definitely now seems like the place to go in your summertime. Um, Over here in the winter time, it seems like everyone is you know is over there at some point in your summer.
yeah, um, yeah. Very lucky to call Queenstown home. I moved here pretty early on uh, in the summer of 2013, just because it was the only place in New Zealand that had a lift access bike park. Um, and then now we've got three bike parks with chairlift or gondola access within an hour. Um, so it's just kind of perfect. And then the trail riding, the pedaling around here is pretty amazing. You can pedal huge climbs, 1,000 meters, or you can like use the lifts and do half bumps.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's pretty amazing place to just train. And I think the summers down here are pretty nice. Yeah, we've got the with the lakes and just a beautiful scenery that once word got out how good it was, it's just each year there's just more and more like international riders coming to train,
yeah,
um, and just to hang out. It's just such a good spot. Yeah, so it's definitely become, the Southern Hemisphere's version of Whistler.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And
Uh,
is it made the town obviously anywhere where there's people come in, the town grows and gets you know gets on board with why the town's growing because a lot of it is it that much of an influence with mountain bikers now that the town's mainly for mountain biking, would you say, in the summertime?
nah, mountain biking is just a small slither. Queenstown just thrives on tourism, but like the town itself, like you said, is growing pretty at an astronomical like speed. Um, which comes with good and it's like comes with issues. Um, but everyone's moving here for the same reason because it's real good. So you can't blame people.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, we've got a like real uh great mountain bike club that um you know, fund all this trail building. There's like, yeah, lots of stuff going on. So Queenstown has a massive, like, temporary population just from tourists, but quite a small permanent population, which is growing. But the permanent population, it's like thrives on like biking. So the town gets behind it, but like I think like from a council point of view, like they don't really need bike tourists because bike tourists, they might just be taking beds away from other tourists. So so they're like, well, they don't really need to like go and do any marketing or anything because when everyone, every man and his dog comes here to ride, they just do the marketing for them. So
so and
yeah.
do you think it'll is the trail building growing, is it going to become like Whistler, would you say?
Yeah, it kind of already is.
Is it?
Um,
I only
yeah,
see
I would.
videos and
Yeah,
hard to
I
tell.
think we've probably got more pedal access trails than Whistler would.
Okay.
Um, and then across the board, I think the trails are maybe a bit more user friendly from to go in steps from like beginner to advanced. The steps aren't as big as they would be in a place like Whistler.
Right.
So you could move to Queenstown, buy your first bike, ride some trails that are suitable for you, and then you could just progress in
Oh,
small increments on the type of trails. And all that's kind of been like funded by the mountain bike club. And then off the back of that, a lot of locals have built really gnarly trails to like because they don't want just easy tracks. So it's like the trail building's just blowing up.
yeah.
And a lot of the like local stuff is illegal, but they're not building it in the bike park. It's like out of the way. Um, yeah, so and those kind of trails are just like word of mouth local stuff, not on trail forks.
So,
But yeah, it's pretty. You could spend a couple of weeks here and like you still wouldn't have kind of hit everything that you might want to hit.
yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it looks
Mhm.
amazing from the bits of the things I watch and see on people's Instagram and stuff. It looks amazing. And
Well, like even like Sam's been down here building one of his tracks.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that's in a whole privately funded trail center that's going to be like a pedal only bike park.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, and so they're putting 4 or 5 different trail crews. Sam was one of them to build basically a whole pedal access park in one go.
Oh, brilliant.
Um, yeah, so like that, even just the fact that they're like putting 5 different trail building crews in
Yeah.
to so that it's not so that each trail has its own style because everyone builds slightly different. So then, in 6 months' time, they'll when they open it, there might be 10 top to bottom tracks, 300 or 400 meters descent, built by 5 different crews. So everything will feel a bit different.
Oh, great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And is that in town or is that a bit outside of town?
That's about 10 minutes drive out of the center of town.
Okay, so not far at all.
Um, no, not far. Like you could pedal there, go for a ride, and pedal back, and it'd be a good little warm up.
Good stuff. And
Yeah.
what's like obviously I've been to New Zealand for the EWS's in 17 and 19 I think, and before then I kind of came out there in the early 2000s, and mountain biking was thriving back then, um, on the whole New Zealand looks amazing for mountain biking. I watched the Crankworks events last week or whenever it was in Rotorua, and I'll be honest, that the footage from the downhill there for me was fantastic. I thought that was amazing. That track looked
Mm.
unreal. Look, it came across on the TV for me a lot better than some of the World Cups do. They look like they've done a great job on that track, and there seems to be a lot of supporters there. Is it still growing in New Zealand? Is it just getting more and more popular, would you say?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely if you just go off like the amount of bikes you see around town, bike racks on cars, and no matter where you are in New Zealand, like you're never very far away from a trail centre. So a lot of government and local council funded trail projects,
Yeah,
um, which just makes it so accessible. And now I think like when I was starting, it was a bit of a niche sport amongst my friends,
yeah,
but now all the kids have like a trail bike and they all go riding with their mates,
yeah,
um, which is pretty cool. So now you have this next generation, which is yeah, it's totally normal to like go mountain biking,
yeah,
especially in towns like this.
yeah.
Yeah, like all the kids get like subsidized bike park passes through school.
Brilliant,
Um, yeah, so when you go riding, there's just these big packs of groms.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty cool.
It's a bit different than, I was saying this to somebody else, like, the level of riding is just getting better and better. And, a big part of that is, the amount of trails that you can access now as a young person. When I was starting, you had to you basically push your bike up the hill 6 times. That's all you got in a day, and rode maybe 6 runs of a 2-minute track, and that was it till next week. Um, it's incredible what people have got and can do now.
Yeah,
It's
that was the same for us. It's like we would just I guess it was the same as the like UK style. Like we didn't have where me and Win grew up, we didn't have we just rode hardtails at the dirt jump skate park, and then if we were going to mountain bike, we were just pushing up a push track in the forest and just hitting rut tracks and
yeah,
but I think that's why you hone your skills because it's just constant repetition.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Which some of the kids miss out on now because they have it so good that you just go and do laps and laps and laps, which
yeah.
is repetition, but I think there's a lot to gain from
Hundred,
going and hitting a left right corner combo 100 times.
yeah, getting it,
Um, yeah, because you're doing it straight away again
yeah,
rather than spending 3 minutes going down the track, 10 minutes going back up the lift to practice that one corner that you made a mistake on. You
yeah,
like correct those finite errors real quickly if you're doing it back to back.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've said that many times. I mean, even where I live, now in the Tweed Valley, where I grew up, we basically had two or three turns that we just rode all day, and a couple of jumps. Whereas now I live here, you can, pedal up to the top of the golfy and just do a run and then go and pedal up and do another track. There's a few guys that, kind of my age that I go out riding with, and I can tell that they've never done a lot of sort of downhill racing or the stuff that we've done, and that I've saying to them, you totally benefit if you just spent a bit of time riding the same little track over and over again. And yeah, that definitely gets missed out these days.
Yeah, big time. Even just like we did a coaching thing with some young fellas and just had some cones out, or we just put helmets on the ground on the gravel and just like set up a rut track.
Yeah,
And as I was doing it, I was, it reminds you how beneficial
yeah,
just practicing the basics is.
yeah, yeah.
How to flat corner with, rotating your cranks and weighting the outside foot and stuff like that. Just things that you're not really focusing on these days, but I think no matter what level you are, it's always good to have a bit of a refresher
Oh yeah, definitely.
on
And
the
fun.
basics.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's real fun.
Yeah,
Yes. Because you just, it's low consequence. You just keep going until you start. And I was telling these kids, you can hear when you're doing flat corners, you can hear traction.
yeah,
You can like listen to your bike and what your tires are doing. So when you start washing, you'll hear the wash. So like you can tune in to what
actually,
sounds
I
you're
can.
looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And just you mentioned Win earlier. I've done I've had a chat with Win, and he mentioned that you guys started out together riding with each other as two brothers that have been super successful. Is that is part of that because you guys are kind of like, did you always have a rivalry when you were, sort of doing racing and stuff together? Was it something where you always wanted to beat Win and vice versa, or was it just good that, you always had your brother to go and ride with?
We never had a rivalry. He was always a little bit like a level above me, but he was pretty focused on becoming a professional mountain biker from day dot.
Okay.
Whereas I was kind of like one foot in the door, one out because I was into heaps of other stuff as well. So I wasn't like as invested in it as much as like Sam and Win were, where they would like go riding all the time. Like if I was at the skate park, I'd do a few laps on my skateboard, a few laps on my bike, go and do something else. So it wasn't until, my early 20s that I went how it like went all in on it.
Okay.
Um, but one thing that was, I think, it rubbed off on me was like when had a pretty crazy work ethic um, from a young age. So he was like super disciplined and focused on the training side and stuff. So when the time came to go all in, for me, I knew what that looked like.
Mhm.
Um, so then, yeah, you just knuckled down and put in the work behind the scenes. Um, so yeah, but we never had like a rivalry in the sense that like I want to beat you, you've got a target on your back. Um, yeah, and then he's always been real supportive and helpful with giving me or just helping out in the early days with trying to get it going, advice and introducing you to people. But just when I first went and raced World Cups, he gave me some good advice, which was like just try and get to know everyone
Mhm.
because it's a small industry. Um, and yeah, and then that kind of like did set me on my on a good path because you're kind of making an effort to like learn people's names, introduce yourself, blah blah blah. And then, those people that I've met like yourself and stuff, a lot of you create these friendships and also like your network grows pretty big, pretty quick.
Yeah.
Um, so if anyone was listening, that would be one piece of advice that I would give would be um, just try and get to know everyone and make an effort to like even just learning people's names because if you're going to go to Fox and get your stuff serviced as a privateer, then make an effort to get to know Taj and Jules and give them take some chocolates or biscuits or something because that goes a long way. And I think that's just like stuff you should do in every walk of life anyway. But yeah, being a good person goes definitely gets your foot in the door ahead of other people if they haven't.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and what when you're starting out, those people are a huge part of making it work for you, aren't they? Back when I first went to World Cups, there's so many people helped me out that didn't need to. I wasn't necessarily sponsored by them or whatever, but they were really good people and helped me out. So yeah, I always appreciated that. Um, for sure.
And it kind of and it goes both ways because then now when you're in a position and someone is struggling a little bit, like, a couple of tires can fall out the back of the van pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it's at the end of the day, it's not too much off your back.
yeah.
But when someone did that to you, you're happy to do that for someone else down the track, you know, pay it back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've had as much you know, sort of satisfaction helping out like a local kid with a bike than handing over a freshly painted World's bike to Sam Hill. It's sometimes
Mm.
it's just more rewarding in some ways that you've been able to help some kid out that wouldn't get help, otherwise. And if you're able to do that, why not?
Yeah, big time. I froth trying to, especially like with Kiwis and stuff, just always try and at least have someone in under your wing that you're helping out a little bit because the all you want to do is just give those people the opportunities that you had.
Yeah,
And it might be bikes, parts, whatever. Um, but yeah, just try and keep that keep it flowing
yeah,
through you. Um, yeah, because it is real rewarding, and it's a nice feeling
yeah.
helping out.
It's great. And
Yeah.
and And Ed, people that probably don't know you as well as I do, and your friends and stuff, you come across as super easygoing guy, funny. All your chats you do and your media stuff is all quite light-hearted and what we all want to see. We don't want to always see serious stuff. But behind all that, I remember when Elliot Heap came out there and he said you were one of the most hard-working, training, fittest guys he'd ever come across. Is that something that you kind of keep to yourself, um, or does everybody know that of you, who's your friend, sort of thing?
Um, I think most people know it, but like it's not hard for me to be like that because where I live, and like I really enjoy riding, so it's like you you're working hard, but you're getting a lot out of it because you get so like when Elliot came and me and Elliot were riding heaps, we're just doing big days, but riding sick trails.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so it's like um, we've got a saying in New Zealand, do the mahi, get the treats. Mahi means work in Māori. Um, So yeah, you're just doing the mahi to get the treats. Like you might ride 1,000 meters, but you get to descend an epic
Yeah,
1,000 meter trail. Um, so it's not hard. It was never hard to get super fit because
just do
just
front
where
row
we
riding.
yeah. But and obviously having a good group of riders to train with.
Yeah,
Um, for a while it was just me, Matt, and Cole Lucas, and we would gym, ride, always the training was always a little bit of a competition. So if we were meant to go for a ride and one person didn't show up, then the group chat, like the two others would be giving him some shit. Or if someone went to the gym and the other two didn't, we'd call it high horsing. And yeah, so you just post a picture in the chat that you're at the gym, and then the two other boys would reply with a horse emoji. But yeah, so like lighthearted banter, but it was always made you accountable.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so it makes it quite easy when you've got like a little bit of a team
yeah,
to train with.
yeah.
Um,
Better than doing it on your own, isn't it?
yeah, and that's when like when Elliot came and visited it for a couple of years, you straight away you're just like, man, well now we've just added Elliot to like someone who wants to come riding every day. Um, And the first few, I remember the first week, Elliot's like, I don't know if I can handle this, and I'm like, trust me, you just got to get through the first week because
Yeah,
all the climbs around here are pretty steep,
yeah,
so
you
it's
said
just
that.
hard. It's just hard climbing, but you just got to get through the first week, and then all of a sudden you burst through the bubble and you're out the other side, and it gets a lot easier. And then it's sweet.
Yeah,
But yeah, just having people. Um, but also, I like to, I'm pretty routine based, so then just rinse and repeat. Just have the same kind of week plan. So I don't feel like I'm doing like more or less than anyone else. It's just like I try and stay busy, and also if like when it's your job, got to make the most of someone paying you to ride your bike, so you may as well go and ride it.
yeah, for sure, definitely. And tell us a bit about your team, and obviously Bernard's done a fantastic job over the years growing a tiny little team into a big international setup. Tell us a bit about that, and some of the other teams that you've rode for over the years. Which ones have been the most fun, which ones have been the most stressful. I think people will be interested to know all that.
Yeah, so. Um, I've had it pretty interesting where I've only ridden for Bernard and myself.
Yeah.
Because when we were doing Bergamot, I was running the team and riding for it. Um, so the Bergamot thing came about in 20 at the end of 2013, and then managed. I thought I'd had a kind of okay year privateering, um, and I thought I'd get a ride super easy and just thought it'd happen, but no one seemed to ring me up. So went out and put together my own program. So we had a team in 2014 with me, Casey Brown, and Jack Moyer, and one mechanic, and yeah, we had a 30,000 euro budget for the whole year. Yeah, and ran a World Cup team for that.
Think that's doable this year?
Nah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can make do with, you know, people. I think people get a little bit lost in all the bullshit and
Oh
thinking
yeah,
they need everything. But like I was saying to these kids the other day that, you see Bruni and stuff, but Bruni could win a World Cup if it was Jack and a sprinter.
yeah,
That's all he needs is his mechanic and a
yeah,
van.
yeah,
It's the big team environment is more for marketing.
yeah. I think
Um,
it
but
all helps, but 100% he could win World Cups with just him and Jack and a sprinter. Yeah,
yeah, so I was saying to these guys, like, you've got all the resources that you need. to go and perform it. You don't need, an articulating truck to win the World Cup. That's not what you need.
Well, Mike
Um,
used to tell us that's what we were missing. Yeah, Mike. I love Mike to pieces, but he was like, Pedro, we need a big truck. We can't win without a big truck. And I'm like, what are you talking about? One,
yeah, the truck doesn't race.
if we buy the big truck, we can't go to the races. So you know what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what some
Um,
people think.
yeah, but getting back to the Bergamot stuff, so yeah, we did the first year on 30 grand and we did really well. So then the next year we were an elite team. So they upped our budget a little bit, not massively. Um,
Tell us a bit
but
about the Bergamot bike and how did Bergamot get involved in doing a downhill World Cup bike?
so in 2013 at the last race in Leogang, I raced in a t-shirt that said sponsor this 2014 and then on the back it said looking for a team.
Yeah,
And then, that was a bit of self-marketing, but it kind of worked because off the back of that, Tommy Marquardt, who was the designer at Bergamot, reached out and said, "Hey, like, are you looking for a team? We saw that you were." And I was like, "Yeah, um, I'm actually looking to like put together my own team now." At the time when he reached out, and then the ball got rolling, and Hayes Group came on board, and they gave us a little bit of budget. But Bergamot already had a single pivot kind of horse link bike, downhill bike, and then all the OEM part suppliers came on board as our team sponsors.
okay.
Um, and yeah, they just sent us some bikes, and we went racing. And then because we did well. Um, Straight off the bat. Like at Cairns, I qualified fourth,
Yeah, I remember.
on like a full just stock bike. No
Yeah,
worries. Jack ended up getting 11th. I think Casey finished sixth. So like we straight off the bat, we did exceeded their expectations. So the Bergamot guys were really stoked and they wanted to support us as best they could. And so straight away in 2014 and 15, they started working on a new downhill bike. Um, and so at the tail end of 2015, we went on to a different bike, which
was
was really good. Like,
that from input from you guys? Were you telling them what you wanted, or were they already pretty ahead of the
no,
game?
they were pretty onto it. It's like the bike that they designed was actually real similar to a Nuke Proof with like a Moto Link.
Yeah,
Um, and it worked really good. Um, so from the outside looking in, we people would have thought that our setup wasn't as good with the Manitous and stuff, but we had a really cool guy, German dude, Jerome, who was helping us out with so when we were struggling a bit with the damper, he converted our forks to a spring fork, so we just and they just worked, man.
yeah,
So easy. And then we could pick our rear shocks. We had Magura brakes, SRAM running gear, and Maxxis tires. So we actually had like a pretty well-rounded setup. And then we had a bike that was working really well. Um, so even though we were running on like a shoestring budget and stuff,
you had
all the
good.
riders were Yeah, all the riders were always real happy because we had good mechanics. We were having fun on the road, and the bike was good. Um, and as soon as the bike's not good, that's when you've probably had the same thing. When the riders get in their head that they're not stoked with the bike, then it creates the team dynamic
Yeah,
becomes pretty tricky.
definitely.
So I was pretty lucky that we never really dealt with that. Everyone who rode for us had their best result or something along those lines. In 2017, we had Reese Wilson, 16 Rupert Chapman, and everyone was doing good. So So like it was a real fun time, but um, during that time, the Bergamot as a brand was sold to Scott, and by the time 2016, 17 rolled around, there weren't many of the original guys and stuff that I was dealing with
Yeah.
involved anymore. Um, and at the same time, you know, because we were always struggling on budget, and I'm a pretty like numbers focused guy, so like I'm always just doing the maths in my head. So it became quite stressful, and I found my results weren't kind of they kind of went in a bit of a wave, um, and I kind of put that down to just I was just too focused on the team side of things and not actually writing.
Yeah.
Um, because you always want, like you've got scheduled payments that are coming in, but you've also got outgoings and you're trying to balance that. And like we didn't have like a team credit card and stuff. So it was like the money in the account is what you've got to spend. It's not like you've got an overdraft. So then it was just kind of stressful on like making everything work. So in 2017, because Bergamot was kind of starting to merge into the Scott
Mhm.
brand and things were changing. I was kind of looking to just go and ride for someone
So you
as a
did that.
rider.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then me and Bernard, because we were both running teams and we're friends, we would always like meet up and like book stuff together and try and collaborate as teams. Like if we're going to America, let's do rental cars and accommodation together,
Yeah.
stuff like that to save money. And he just said, "Oh well, like um, if you're keen to wind that down, just come and ride for us." Uh, and so he sold it to Pivot that I would do some enduros for Pivot who were keen to get an enduro rider, and then I'd race all the downhills. He was just like, "Well, that's how we'll get it over the line."
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so in 2018, I went and started riding for Pivot, and then straight away. If my results started to pick up pretty much bang on, and I think it was a combination of like just a nice refreshing change. Obviously they make amazing bikes,
Mhm.
so that was you're going on to some pretty awesome equipment, um but yeah, and not having to worry about team stuff, just turning up and focusing on the job at hand rather than constantly running through a matrix of like numbers in your head.
Yeah.
And then and things just picked up, and it was a cool. I bought my mechanic from Bergamot with me. Yeah, and it wasn't like you were stepping into something that was completely new because like we'd obviously been doing so much together anyway. It was just like you're just jumping over the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of similarities and familiar faces made that transition real easy.
Oh, cool, cool. And
Mm.
how, how much do you think for both downhill and enduro? There's so much media hype on, certain bikes, and and you guys have got a super, I guess, modern, up to date, high pivot, two chain, crazy design bike that looks amazing. But how much, how much do you think with all the different bikes now, does that matter at World Cup level in both downhill and enduro?
I mean, if you use Nico's project as a case study, I think that just shows that, he's gone for a pretty like a basic proven suspension platform, and he's tried to eke out the most performance out of that platform as you can. And I think like if you look at his bike, the way that that suspension system works, it's quite easy to tune the suspension to work for that platform. So then when you add that in, and then you've got, if I always say to be competitive, you need good suspension, brakes, and tires.
Yeah, same.
And then so if you just throw those three things at a frame design that works, and then you start using all the resources available, like to telemetry, all the testing that riders are doing these days, you can create a pretty damn good race bike. And that's what Nico's done. He's like used that blueprint. And if you look at how it's going for them, it's going really well.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. And then on the other end, you've got a bike like ours, which is like cutting edge technology. No one's done that before. But if you break it down, all those, it looks super technical, but it's quite basic. It's just yeah, and it works amazing. Does it like make you, does it make me faster? I think it makes it easier for me to go faster,
mhm,
and maybe it's safer because the bike is so well rounded each run that like you can you can go Mach 10 more comfortably.
yeah,
But I think downhill racing you can it's still, you know when Amaury Piron goes beast mode, it doesn't matter if he's on a common sail or a nuke proof.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like if he wants to turn up and do those runs that like he can do and he does sometimes,
yeah,
then he'd probably do it on an enduro bike.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he's some boy, and I mean,
Yeah.
and that's another question. Obviously, you've been at the very top level in both disciplines, but other outside of yourself, who's been the most impressive bike riders that you've raced against and are still racing against now, and watching and commentating on at the World Cup downhills as well?
Um, I mean, like Rat Boy's ease of skills comes to mind pretty early
Yeah,
because he's just mucking around.
yeah,
Yeah, he's got like a fun style,
yeah,
but then he goes and wins the race, and you're like, it looked like he was just
yeah.
cruising.
And cruising.
Yeah, and then I grew up idolizing Sam,
Mhm.
so yeah, he was another rider who like changed the game. Um, I didn't run clips until I went and raced World Cups because of Sam, but then I couldn't run flats. Yeah, my first World Cup was at Val di Sol, and in my quali run, I blew my feet off as the track got steep and just had the biggest crash. And the next weekend, I put clips on, and I was like, I can't ride these tracks and flats.
Do you think, obviously, Sam's older now, but do you think if Sam was in his, early 20s now, still on flat pedals, do you think it's still achievable for somebody to win now in downhill on flat pedals?
Yeah, I fully think it is. I think it's more achievable because the marginal gain out of being on clips in terms of like pedaling and stuff is kind of eliminated because the tracks are so straight and fast. Like it's just, you snap out of the gate, click two gears, and the next time you pedal, it's like you're already going fast. So you're not like pulling up on the pedals. You're um you're just maintaining speed or changing gears. Um
And the suspension and bikes are better and more planted, I guess, now.
Yeah, so like as long as your riding style lends itself to flat pedals, yeah, you can. It's not like you have to take your feet off or anything. You can execute World Cup runs no worries, feet up the whole way. So yeah, I don't think yeah, I was listening to the Reese Wilson podcast and he was saying a little thing of his is he would like to try and compete on flat pedals because he reckons it's the OG form of riding.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty cool. And also he like justified how he thinks he can do it. And it was for those reasons. So yeah, it would be cool if um
And
yeah, if
ob-
people
ob-
went on flats again.
yeah, I mean, I think, the you answered my question there on whether you think it's possible, which is cool. Um, but I think, the kids coming through that are going to be the people that will win the World Cups because there isn't a Sam or whoever, Chris Kovarik winning World Cups on flat pedals, that they might not think that that's the right thing to do. So I think, it's going to take somebody else to win on flat pedals for that sort of trend to come again.
Yeah, I agree. Because yeah, I remember watching Earthed or something, and it might have been Peeler or Schladming. It was flat pedals one, two, and three. Yeah, that's like that's advertising for the flat pedals brand. Yeah, everyone was like going out and yeah, putting bar extensions in to make their bars like 710 over 680
Yeah, yeah,
and putting flat pedals on. I had a set of those Eastern Cully pedals,
yeah. I had some of them.
and yeah, because they were what those guys were running.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Amazing. Um, and then in the current crop of riders, who really blows your mind now? Obviously, I guess when you're
Uh,
a bit older, you're not quite the super fan that you were when you were a Grom, but you still have some people that you think are pretty special.
yeah, I just can't get enough of when Amaury turns up fired up
Yeah,
because it's just his style's a bit looser.
yeah,
Um, and like he's going 110%
yeah,
from start to finish. He's not like building into the run. He's going up at split one, extended at split two, extended at split three, extended at split four, winning the race. He's getting a solid block of greens. It
yeah,
must be a good feeling when you're coming down and you look up because you can always kind of see it,
yeah,
green or red, uh, to see only green.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, love watching him race
yeah,
because it's always he doesn't seem to like ride practice like that,
yeah,
but when he races, it's like all on. Um, I like Ronan because don't quite know what you're going to get. He's pretty keen to show up regardless.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and I also like the way that he like spending a bit of time with him, and he's training in Queenstown and stuff. His idea of going for laps is doing 15 top to bottom race pace laps. Yeah. And
looks that way.
that's yeah, but I can rally behind that because he's that's not my kind of cup of tea is doing that amount of top to bottom fast laps.
Yeah,
But I kind of wish I had a little bit more of that early on because I don't think I'd like quite practiced racing enough in the sense I was always riding, doing like the volume, but not focusing on like what the key skills you need for racing. And um,
yeah,
so when Ronan's out doing 10 race pace laps, I'm like that the needle of what his race pace is just slowly creeping up and getting more and more comfortable
yeah,
so that when you do go that extra 10%, it's maybe a little bit further along than what your natural race pace would have been without the like practicing that so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he like hangs it out. It's sick.
It's pretty super impressive and fun to watch from, when you're looking at content and stuff, it's always fun watching him. And for sure. Has Amory been out there riding, or I've never seen any footage of him out there, I don't think.
He came here last year.
Okay.
Um, yeah, he came here last year to do some testing and stuff when he was getting back into it.
Did you get to take him out
And
laps and stuff?
no, I wasn't here when he was here, but I know he really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, he's definitely high on my list of people I enjoy watching. And then trying to think who else. Yeah, probably just Sam and Ratboy were like probably my two favorites.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned three amazing bike riders there. I couldn't argue with any of those. They're all
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, what one question, because you're a good friend of his, and he still looks amazing on the bike, and I was super impressed with how he was riding last weekend at Crankworks. But why do you think Sam Blenkinsop doesn't get the results that his riding looks like he should get in recent years, at least?
Like um if I had to pinpoint it, I think his style these days is maybe he's doing too much.
Yeah, it looks
Um
incredible, doesn't it? And he looks like he's going
yeah,
so fast.
it's sick. He's got such a good style.
Yeah,
But when you watch you know, Sam Hill was probably the first guy that I was like, okay, like if you put a red dot in his chest, um that dot doesn't move.
oh,
So he uses his arms as suspension and his legs as suspension, but that trunk, his torso doesn't move. And it means that when you're going through rough stuff, um, his head's perfectly still as well. So like, if you wiggle your head, it's hard to see.
yeah,
And then Sam Hill was so solid that the bike's moving, you're hinging at the hips, absorbing with your legs, taking it in with your arms, but your head and your torso doesn't move. That it's probably easier to focus and ride at speed because it's easier to see.
yeah,
Whereas um, Blinky's kind of the opposite. He's moving around a lot, and I do the same. Like I um, try and do too much. Or, I'm always like trying to get in an extra pedal stroke or like, forcing the issue a bit. Um, yeah, so I think maybe just the changing of the guard in terms of style um, is partly that reason. But and in no way are we saying like he's not going fast.
no,
But I
not
think,
oh,
but I think to go and be competitive at the highest level, um, you need to analyze certain there's certain things that some guys are doing that is making it easier to perform at the highest level, and one of them would be like being super solid on the bike.
yeah,
Because when I yeah yeah like when you watch he Sam Hill, he's quite upright looking quite far ahead. I think if there was like a laser that went out of his eyes, then his eyes would probably be 2 or 3 meters further ahead than someone else. And
yeah,
that means he's got more time to take in the information before he gets to
yeah.
it. Yeah, and so like when
If
I'd watch him, yeah, yeah, when you watch him, he's looking quite far up. Um, Whereas
I did that, I
myself, like
didn't go over the bars before I got there.
Yeah. Yeah. But oh, it's real interesting stuff.
It is. It's super interesting. And do you think um I mean you've had these iconic race runs that people post about, Sam's done them, Kvarek's done them and I guess the Danny Hart did it at the Worlds when he was younger in Chompery. Aaron Gwynn's done it. I guess Amory's done the most recent big winning margins when it's been wet, like in Leger last year and Val de Sol last year. Do you think there'll be anyone that in these new kids that will come along and just change the sport again and just be able to put big amounts of time into people, or do you think that's kind of gone now?
It's a never say never. I think there's probably still quite a bit of time out on track in the technology as well as
Uh-huh.
skill.
Yeah.
Um, just having ridden some of the electric stuff in on the enduro side of things, I think that technology actually has like more of a place in downhill
Okay. Yeah.
because you know the track so well. So like you change your gears, you'll be able to change your suspension depending on where you are. So you might click two gears on your right hand side, but you might click into a different compression tune on your front and rear on the left side at the same time. So um so I think yeah, as people grab hold of that, then yeah, there probably is some big margins still out there. Um
Do you think the amount of travel is gonna stick the same? Like it's kind of stayed at the same amount of travel for a long time now, even though tracks have changed and got faster and do you think you can go longer travel or shorter travel in downhill? I'd say more longer travel than shorter, but do you think is that something that people are not playing around with enough?
um Yeah, see, I don't really know. Um, I'm pretty bad when it comes to feedback because everything's always all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think it'll probably stay where it's at, to be honest. Um, but then having not actually done any testing, if people were looking at it and being like, okay, let's put 180 on the back, keep it at 200 up the front, or let's go 220, 200, and just seeing how that affects times when you're doing testing and stuff, there might actually, you don't know until you try it. Um, and these days, all these top guys are testing like the pro motocross riders, that every riding session has an agenda.
Yeah.
It's on the clock, it's feedback, it's all that stuff. So I'm sure some people are out there trying some different things and finding out that there is benefits.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and like, it's Bruni's approach to racing is rubbing off on everyone, but
Which
he was the first
is
first guy to
basically
kind of
like
do it like that.
what Nicholas Vulio did back in the day as well.
Yeah, just everything, all the data's logged, you know, conditions, all that stuff. And then when the conditions do change, Jack goes into his little notebook and goes, this is what worked at this place that was similar to this. Let's
Yeah.
plug that in.
Yeah.
And Bruni has total trust in Jack's,
Mhm.
you know, call. He does the riding, Jack does the bike. It's a good like team that
Yeah.
they've got going on, and that's why it's been super successful.
Yeah. Definitely. And
Mm.
is that something that you guys do? Because obviously to everyone on the outside, your team looks super professional. You've got a big setup. Bernard does amazing job. You know, you've got all the really good bikes and equipment. Does your program do a lot of that stuff, like going all together and testing and trying things and putting all the telemetry on and stuff?
Um, Not really, not like less than you'd think, but Bernard, and I think it's because, you know, we're not old school, but we're kind of old school.
Yeah,
And I've always gone on a off field set and forget.
yeah,
And I've been happy to do that because especially when I was racing all downhill and all enduro, like I just wanted to I tried to set up my two bikes so they felt the suspension felt similar on both.
yeah,
And once I was happy with where I was at, I would just leave it so that when I would go one weekend I'd be enduro, the next weekend I'd be downhill. It was easy to chop and change between them.
yeah,
But nowadays, I think you need to be doing a bit more testing and stuff. So our teams definitely started doing more of that. It's always like a bit of a, I don't really like to go down the rabbit hole because sometimes you get lost.
yeah,
Um, so for myself, I'm just looking for a setup that I'm happy with, and then we'll make small changes depending on the venue around that setup.
yeah.
I'm not trying to tune the bike for a venue, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then yeah, I think uh, it's quite tricky because for someone like Bernard, he's also been the same as me, where he's kind of not been. Well, he's like happy to just ride the bike
yeah,
as it is. If it feels good, then it's sweet. But then I think now with everyone putting in so much effort behind the scenes, you've got to kind of adapt to that new model to
yeah,
stay on the ball. Um, and then when you do start finding tenths of seconds out of your setup, you're like, damn, I wish I did this a little bit earlier because
yeah,
there's so much free time out there. It's just you've got to invest a lot of time to find it,
yeah, yeah,
and that's tires, suspension, what's the weather, how does the weather affect your suspension, stuff like that. But that takes a lot of time and resources, but that's free time.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's just
Yeah.
finding that balance, isn't it, to give you the confidence to perform at your highest level as well.
Yeah, big time. If you go into the race and you're like, I'm on the best bike, I'm the best rider, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about, the EdBull media. I mean, did you come up with that name for us in the first place? Or did you come up with that? Because it's flipping amazing. I love your new
Oh,
team,
it was
by the way.
yeah. I was It came about at Hardline in 2019. I was I broke my wrist the week before, so they were like, "Oh, come along, you can get some phone clips and stuff, and still just like be part of the week." So um, and then so I was just joking with the guys that I'd be EdBull Media House, and yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. So I started an Instagram
Yeah, a
handle,
good
and when I was
time.
get yeah, yeah, the Austrians like weren't happy, but the UK guys thought it was funny, so it was all good.
Difficult.
Yeah, so all the writers were like tagging EdBull Media House because I was like getting the phone clips and stuff for them. So it just kind of like got some traction pretty quick. And then yeah, it was just something that same thing when I was injured, just trying to stay busy and stuff, and because obviously you're still at the events, just getting up on track and filming some people and just having fun with it. Like not really, it's not the most PG friendly channel. But yeah, it's pretty authentic. What you see is what you get. So
Yeah,
I think that's why people like it. And then knowing all the riders and stuff and being able to have a joke with them. Um, yeah, it's fun for me, and it's something to do when like when I was busted up. Um, yeah, and then it's also like it all comes back to like I'm still trying to you're still trying to like give your sponsors and stuff some value. Like I don't want to just sit on the couch and cry about it. You may as well get out there and make the most out of a shit situation. And then that's kind of how it all came about, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then yeah, when you get people enjoying it, so you're like, oh sweet, I'll just keep doing it. So yeah, it comes in waves. Like sometimes during the season it's mint because it's real easy, but like during the off season, I like to like. So I haven't been posting much this summer, but as soon as the season kicks off, we'll rip back into it, and then yeah. So EdBull Media House has an on season and an off season.
cool, cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, you everyone on your team, obviously Bernard with what he's done an incredible job with all the stuff that he does. Yourself and obviously then your brother does an amazing job on all his media. Um, it's good to see, and it's interesting for the people that don't get to go to all the races and stuff. Jack does a good job as well. Yeah, it's cool. Do you think I don't know if we just don't see it as much because we're all English speaking and it's similar, but you don't you don't really see the French and foreign speaking people doing as much as you guys and maybe some of the UK guys. Why do you think that is? Or do they and we just don't see it?
I think they probably do, and we don't see it. Like I know Marie does a little bit, and like he's. I wish she did. I wish someone did a bit more because he's
Okay.
quite a character.
Yeah. I need
Um,
to do some. I've seen a couple of clips where they were. I can't remember what video it was where they were in the back of a car and drifting, and it was
yeah, yeah,
wild shit. We'd like to see more of that.
yeah, yeah. That's what I want to see. Like those guys, they know how to have a good time.
Yeah.
And like he doesn't he's got a great personality at the races as well. Like he's having a fun time. Like I really enjoy it. But yeah, I think it's just maybe it's the French are always turning up to they're there to race, not to like video and stuff. Loris and it's quite serious, even though they're not like super serious guys, but like for the week it's pretty serious.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I just think they're not that interested in um putting any extra energy into that when it's like they're there to do a job and they're there to race the bike, not to like video and do any of that other stuff. So yeah, but yeah, I've always, obviously our team's a little bit different where everyone kind of gets behind that side, that kind of stuff. And high tides raise all ships. So like from Bernard's YouTube channel being super successful, it only raises the profile of like myself and Matt. And I noticed straight away that like once his channel started taking off, the amount of fans coming to our tent was exponentially
Yeah.
bigger than previous years, and just the interactions with fans and yourself, or like myself, was massive because everyone gets to see you and
Yeah.
all the time on Bernard's channel, and then when I started my one, same thing.
Yeah.
Um, Everyone comes up to you to chat, and they really feel like they know you because they get to watch you all the time. But like that's great because it's then you're building like a core fan base for your bike, your own brand, for your sponsors and stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing for
Yeah,
them.
it's pretty valuable.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're trying to make it's as well as riding good bikes, you're trying to make it trendy and fashionable that so people want them, aren't you? And the more fun that you look
Hmm.
like you're having on them bikes, the more people want to buy into it, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that stuff's kind of you can kind of see it too, like um, just from everything. from the views, it all translates. It's all like traceable. So
Yeah.
when things are going good, the bikes are selling, the sponsors are happy. It's like, okay, like all this stuff comes together and it's all part of it. So I think like what, you know, I would there's a lot of there's value. There's kind of like three parts of value that you as a rider. You've got like results, um, maybe like impact, and then being a good ambassador, and like those lines kind of blur. It's not always just results. Like if you're not hitting race winning results, then maybe you need to supplement what you offer with some of those other aspects.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
obviously you guys have got a pretty good setup going. You've got the summer in New Zealand in Queenstown, which is amazing, and then you've got the summer in mainly in Europe doing all the World Cup races. What is it as things changed over the years as you've got older? Is there one season that you prefer? Like, do you like being at home and hanging out with all the pros coming over there and riding your tracks there, and you've got that home base, or do you prefer it on the road in our summertime doing all the World Cup racing?
It's definitely over the years it gets harder to leave home.
Yeah,
I didn't used to care at all. I was like counting down the days for the season to start, and now you're kind of counting down the days in a different way. You're
yeah,
like, oh, like yeah, because you get more grounded. Like, um, you know, I yeah live in the same house, so it's like yeah, you get a bit more settled, so it's like harder to leave. Um, but then like I still. I reckon like I'm on the road for about 6 months, but I've got about a 4.5 month threshold where it's like still super fun, but the last like month can you're like that's about when you're ready to go home.
yeah.
Um, but in no way is like it's not hard to like go because you're so used to it, but it's definitely gotten harder as you get more and more settled into like home life. Yeah, like in my perfect world, it'd be. Uh, on the road for 3 months,
Uh-huh.
traveling and stuff, and a bit more time at home. But like, yeah, don't have the novelty of just picking your schedule. So still more than happy to hit the road and do all that because it's still really fun, like enjoying it. Yeah, it's not a grind at all.
No, no, good. And,
Yeah.
and when you don't get to travel as much and you do end up in one place more, you sometimes you can miss, that traveling when you've done so much of it. You don't think you will, but it can happen.
Yeah, and that's I've always thought like try and make the most
Mm.
of it while you can because it's something that doesn't last forever. So like when that time does come, at least you want to look back and be like, made
Yeah.
the most out of that.
Yeah. And what, so obviously this year, once the elbow's better, the main focus is the enduro races, I take it.
Hmm.
What are your goals for this year, and what other things are you going to be trying to go at, or is that just the main focus, the EDRs?
Yeah, so I'll do all the EDRs,
Yeah,
and then plan on doing three downhill World Cups, the last two, in either Lenside or Andorra.
yeah,
Um, The kind of layout of the season's pretty mint that everything wraps up for enduro at the middle end of August and then can just put the enduro bike away and ride a bunch of downhill for the last 6 weeks. So like that's kind of cool.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So rather than like chopping and changing and feeling like you're not getting enough time on the downhill bike, I'll just race all the enduros to start with, and then when that season finishes, just put that bike away and just ride some downhill. So I'm really looking forward to that. in terms of goals, uh, I haven't really like set any like results goals. Last year I had a few issues going on, so like the season wasn't what I'd expect it to be. Um, but that being said, I'm just happy to like race a full healthy season, but also finish strong, if that makes sense. Yeah, build into it. Um, but yeah, so just kind of looking forward to it. And like we were saying, is like make the most out of every opportunity. So I was prior to this elbow thing, my season was kind of starting 2 weeks ago, and I was just keen to just race all year. Um, just try and do as many events as I can because last season I wasn't really enjoying it as much because I had a few issues going on, just injury wise. So then once I got that all sorted, I was just like I had a really good off season in the gym, strong, riding heaps, like everything started clicking and becoming, when everything's easy. So I was just keen to just race into fitness, like, just get on the stopwatch. But so yeah, as soon as this elbow gets sorted, just get back on track with that and just start doing as many races as we can. Um, yeah.
And what do you, in the future when you decide to, stop racing, what would you like to stay in the industry, do you think, doing something? What would you be your dream kind of job after racing?
I would like to like I'm happy to stay in the industry. Um and yeah, I'd like to, but I don't just want to like walk into a easy job because I was a good racer. I'd like to like challenge myself and learn. And I don't really know what that looks like, but like I'm kind of open to anything. Like when I went to uni and studied marketing and stuff, so I've kind of already got that to like lean back on. But I'd like to, having been an athlete and having dealt with so many like marketing managers and campaigns and stuff, like I think I've got a good understanding of how best to utilize your athletes from a marketing standpoint. So I think there's maybe some doors that could open or like you could push them open just by using your experience from both sides to get the most out of that. So we'll see. Like yeah, and just
Unless Red
yeah,
Bull, unless Red Bull Media House takes over everything.
yeah, maybe the EdBull World Cup series.
That'd be
But yeah, I'm pretty open to anything like yeah, obviously would like to stay in the industry and I think I've still got some value on the front end, but I'd also like to learn some of the back end stuff and be maybe that link that liaises between the two. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Like I'm quite there's definitely like an element of loyalty that I have with like Pivot because they've been so instrumental in like my career that like I would like to stay under that umbrella because there's like it's like a cool family type vibe, as cliche as it sounds. It's pretty good, like I
great.
just WhatsApp, you can WhatsApp from the CEO down to the someone in yeah, it's just like everyone's on board. It's like you're not just talking to a name on a screen. Everyone are people, so that's cool. Yeah, so definitely exciting times coming. Yeah, like as the racing side winds down, I look at it more as like a positive thing that it's not like don't be sad it's over, be stoked it happened.
Yeah, for
And
sure. Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Oh, cool. And do you see yourself, always living in Queenstown, staying there for the foreseeable?
Yeah, I definitely do. Like Queenstown will be home. Um, And but I'm also open to like going and living in another country because like I've done so much traveling, but
Yeah,
I've never lived somewhere else. So, if an opportunity arose that and it required me and my partner or whatever to like go and live somewhere different just for like short, longish term,
yeah,
that'd be all good because it's something that like I haven't done.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's why I kind of say like I'm open to whatever comes because yeah, you just kind of got to grab the ball and run with it in those kind of situations.
And what countries, do you feel you'd like to do that in? Like, obviously, you've been to a lot of places, but is there any certain countries that that'd be more desirable to do that?
Yeah, like I'd like to like live somewhere where you can, like go somewhere where it's a good ski season, and then in the summer you have biking. So like Canada, could be Europe, could be America. Yeah, just I've always liked skiing, but I don't really get to do much.
Yeah,
So I've always said like when we're racing winds down, I'd like to do that. And I think just nowadays with the internet and stuff, you can live or work in a lot of places as long as the time zones check out.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, definitely um, don't really like have my like pin on a map in terms of where I'd like to go, but I'd just be yeah, like I said, open to a lot of different options. Like my partner's, she's Canadian, so that'd be an easy one. And Kiwis and Canadians and Canada and New Zealand are like kind of similar vibe.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so we'll see.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, yeah, we'll wrap it up because I could go on chatting about all kinds of stuff. It's been I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
And
no worries. I appreciate being on.
oh no worries, mate. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope your elbow comes good soon, and because I'll be one of the fans cheering you on at the first round of the enduro from the laptop. I'm gonna try and I'd love to try and get out to a race this year to just come and have a watch and catch up with people, and I've been you do miss it when you've not been for a while, so
Yeah.
I'd like to
If I
give
had if I had to pick one that I was most excited about would be Latuile. Because Latuile's epic enduro race, and then I think being able to watch the downhill race after will make that like a pretty sick week. So I'm excited to watch the downhill there because I think the track they'll build on that, like that hill that we would always race the last stage on, is pretty steep and the terrain's amazing. And then being able to race the enduro there again, it's always a good race.
yeah, definitely. That's the one that I'd like to try and get to if it's possible, but
Mm.
I'll see. But if I do, I'll you'll hear me screaming at you from the side.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Now, mate. Well, most people on here are going to know who you are and what your channels and all that. But if they don't, where's the best kind of place to follow what you're up to and what you're doing?
Yeah, just the usual stuff. At Ed Masters on Instagram, and then if you just put in EdBull Media House into YouTube, you can watch all that stuff. So those are probably the two outlets where most of the content goes. But yeah, or if you're at the races, just come and say good day. Yeah,
We're in a
don't be
pro.
scared.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well, thanks so much for your time, and it's lovely to catch up with you. And yeah, hopefully get to see you sometime in our summer.
yeah, mate. No, bloody good. It's been a good chat.
So, mate. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Ed, and we'll see you soon. Right, well, I hope you all enjoyed that chat with Ed. What a guy Ed is. He's a really good person to have in the industry. Amazing bike rider and just a fun guy and super positive. So, wish him all the best on his recovery and hope to see him at the races. Um, Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'd like to give a big shout out to the firm that have sent me this lovely Firm Factory Racing hoodie for this week. Them guys are doing an amazing job in their part of the world, so check them out. They've got a great movie on YouTube, and Lots of cool Instagram content from them guys. Um, please like, subscribe, all that stuff. It just keeps us going here, motivated. And if you're feeling generous, buy Myra a coffee. And thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.